Is April really pregnant? April is not pregnant. But it's a funny rumor. A rumor cut completely out of, I think, out of whole cloth by Aaron. You and Drexel still on bad terms, as I heard. You said he was mad at you. Well, he doesn't talk to me, so I don't know if we're on good or bad terms at all. I would like to talk to him. I think I have some things to talk to him about, but, you can only go so far. I can't wait to tell you about my case, though. I mean, win or lose, it doesn't matter. The stuff that's happened is stuff that should really trouble people about the system. And I have all the evidence to back it up. Like, it's not making it up. I've got recordings. I've got the documents. I've got all this stuff. Not to talk too much about it, but I mean, one thing people make fun of is that the government says that they gave me my video and that I downloaded it on July, whatever. They didn't present evidence that they did that. The judge just accepted that they did that, but they never did. They have not ever given me a copy of my video, and they haven't gotten it from Rumble or YouTube. I can tell because I have the analytics, right? I can tell when the views stopped coming in, what day it was. Guess what? Views stopped coming in on the 21st because that's when I locked both of them down. There are no views on the 22nd. So that officer who said he watched my video absolutely did not. He didn't. He has lied. But the state said, well, we gave Nick his video. And the judge said, oh, okay. And that's the reality of court. They didn't have to prove it. In fact, the judge came after us for not filing something to prove them out. The thing that my lawyer didn't file is actually great. That thing it's Supplemental Report 8, okay? Supplemental Report 8 includes 4 videos that the state sent me, actually Detective Pomplin, 4 videos that he says that he used to make the warrant request, right? Mind you, the warrant was signed by the judge at 4:06 p.m. on the 22nd. Okay, that's important. The 4 videos that are provided to me by the state that the detective said he used to make the warrant request were all created after the warrant was approved by the judge. And the judge in my case doesn't care. The lawyer tried to explain that to the judge, and he's just like, no, the state says it did this. But the state never provided any evidence that they gave it to me. They just said it. It's amazing. I haven't read my appeal. I hope guys, my appeal is going to lose. Almost guaranteed. Because appeals are for losers. Winning them is a long shot. Not making any bones about it. Believe me, I want my appeal to win, but it's probably going to lose. I haven't read it, though. So I hope it's competent this time. That'd be good. I'm getting a lot of criticism from people who should know better, insinuating or directly saying that it's me who's writing these briefs, me running legal defense and all that stuff in the strategy. No, you hire a lawyer to do that for you, and then you let him do it. It's infuriating. It's not what I would do in some cases. And that goes both ways. Like, it's not what I would do because it's very smart, like, angle to attack. Or it's not what I would do because I don't think it's very useful. But that's why you hire someone else. I'm still dealing with my defamation suit. Yeah, I think I got some status update coming in November about that, but I need to. What a waste of time that is. Again, I have so many stories that have to all have to wait until this is done. Everything's wrapped up. And specifically so, I have to really watch what I say. So I just won't say anything. Technically might not matter, but didn't you tweet that you did mountains of cocaine? I think I tweeted that I was on a mountain of cocaine at some point in time. Yeah, yes. It says absolutely nothing about the crime I am charged with. So I know some people are freaking out about it. If I otherwise am winning and they hang me on a tweet about doing mountains of cocaine at a completely different date and location, I guess they got me. What are your general impressions of the Dabbleverse since you're thrust in, more or less toxic in LawTube? My impressions of the Dabbleverse is, God, I hate every community that exists on YouTube. All of them, unequivocally, without exception. I think they're all terrible. I don't think the Dabbleverse is any better, and I am shocked at how many people watch shows about absolute fucking nobody. You know, I always thought Tampon Tim was Tim Pool. I didn't realize it was Walls. Going through all this has been really frustrating. But recently I remembered something. I like I don't really want to change much. Like, obviously there's some things that probably need to be changed, but just in general, I like me. There's this interesting thing that happens on the internet. People say they just observe, right? Like, they just watch or whatever. They have their people that they watch for whatever content. However they consume the content, doesn't really matter. But people insist that they don't participate, that they just like they're just watching this thing. But the internet isn't that way. The interactivity of the chat, the ability to have direct contact with creators, and the fact that most creators are managing chats that are smaller, than a couple thousand people, and the chats are actually pretty manageable. People directly interact with and influence streamers in ways that entertainment hasn't been able to be influenced before. And I think it has a real, potentially detrimental effect on mental health, emotional health, and all that stuff. I know it's really, really affected me. And there's not like a training course or a warning label or whatever. But the thing is, once some people decide that your life needs to be ruined, they just try and ruin it in different ways, different levels for each person. But for some people, it's just, it's just saying, hey, you're a retard or whatever, which is fine. But one of the things that I learned is that someone compiled stuff I said about Jesus out of context and sent it to the pastor who reported us. So the pastor's report is influenced by out of context quotes I made about Jesus, which are quotes not of authority, because I'm not an authority on the Bible at all. I'm just a guy who likes to read and think when I have time. And so the exploration of the text was me doing textual criticism of various parts of the Bible because I find it interesting. And then being a little cheeky about Jesus' divinity, which I actually believe in, never didn't. But I think I'm going to get into theology, and it's going to go to hell, straight to hell right with me. There's a point, I think, to the fact that God came down as a man, and I don't think Jesus saw himself as sinless. The way he describes sin at the Sermon on the Mount, I think he very clearly considers himself a sinner. We say that Jesus was without sin. That's fine. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. I don't think Jesus considers himself without sin. I don't think that God is constrained by some rule that requires a pure blood sacrifice to forgive sin. God can just go, I forgive you. Like, he can just do that because he's God. right? But people are like, nope, he couldn't do that. He needed Christ to die on the cross. It was the only way. It's like, that doesn't make sense. That's magic. That's not religion. That's not faith. And so it's like, the problem is I get into discussions about that and I actually think through the problems and the questions that come up. And I often come to a conclusion that sounds something like regular Christian doctrine. But sometimes there's a period in the middle where I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. That's kind of a strange part of the text. And people take that and they go, see, he's hates Jesus. It's like, no, I like that guy. He's funny. He hangs around with cool people. That whole discussion to me was more about, do I care if Jesus wasn't sinless? No, I don't give a shit. The Word of Virgin says Jesus cannot sin against himself. That's how I reconcile that, Nick. Of course he can. Why can't he? Like if Jesus just murdered a guy, like that'd be sinning against himself. It wouldn't, I guess you could say, well, since he's God and God makes the choices of right and wrong, God can only choose right, then Jesus' choices are always right, therefore he's sinless. But that's it's a fallacy. That's not a real way to get to that. That's a philosophical cheat mode. But the whole thing is, the pastor who reported us got video compilations from people about things I said about religion. He never talked to me about them. He could have. I talked to him all the time. But he never said anything. Not one thing. I think he's an absolutely terrible human. I just thought he was a mediocre pastor before, but he always seemed caring. But people show you the truth about them. I know there's a snaky retard out there who's told a bunch of stories about my life. One day, friend, I get to talk to. And I have a bunch of stories about your life. I have a bunch of stories about your life. Can I tell you now? Does it hurt your case? No, I don't want to do anything that could potentially influence the testimony of a potential state witness. So any of those stories will just have to wait until all that legal ramifications are out of there. And started to hint, but one of the issues I always had was that how do I word this? There's a bunch of stuff I didn't talk about because it wasn't ever meant to be public. It's not that I didn't want to talk about them. The stuff, it's stories that involved other people, and it's other people, I respect the wishes of other people on stuff like that. But I like talking about stuff. I don't really care what people know. Someone decided to make public a lot of things that were not supposed to be public. And along with that came a lot of lies. And I have the truth. And the reason you'll know what the truth is because I'm just not being ashamed of much of anything. Because again, it wasn't anybody's business. And, but yeah. So, I have fun stories to tell coming up. I always hated not telling them. So, I'm looking forward to that. Some of them are going to have to wait till the court cases are over. Let's just say there's been some dishonesty out there. Who am I voting for? Probably Trump. In the meanwhile, you could probably watch, keep an eye on April's Twitter. That was rather unexpected today, but it's very, very funny.